Previously on Warframe.
For generations you've slept. No purpose. No call to wake you.
There are no words to describe the effervescent mysteries of Orokin, a people who dared to look up at the stars and dream, a civilization that would eventually become an empire that would extend its reach amongst the stars and dominate the system from centuries to millennia. Dream. Not of what you are, but of what you will become. Welcome back, Tenno. My name is Samlab. The cosmos is without limit. Without question, out there in the ripples of the multiverse exist worlds filled with rich story and tales of heroics from great saviors. I could tell you of a time when flesh and machine became one, or I could tell you of a time of greed and the reign of calamity obscured the path of humanity. However, today, I would like to tell you a different story. Come with me as we venture beyond the heliopause of the Sol system, to the Origin system. Like Destiny, this universe is almost a direct parallel, a universe filled with both light and dark. Hero of ancient blade stand united to rid their system of plight, thus restoring freedom to the broken clans and free cities of Earth and beyond. Our journey begins during humanity's golden age, where humanity sat atop the pinnacle of advanced human civilization, the Orokin, an empire whose capital sat on Earth's moon, known as Lua. A strange word, Orokin, derived from the Spanish-Italian word oro and kin from Japanese. Both words in fact mean gold. How truly they did gleam.
O reader mine.
Their societal structure was built on the illustrious aristocratic ruling class of their civilization, who were the apex of dominance for an extended period over the system for eons. They were renowned for their mastery over biotechnology and gene manipulation, leading to the birth of the Grineer, workers genetically programmed to obey their masters, the Orokin. They were infamous for skills utilizing and merging of organic materials with the inorganic. Tenno can observe this by visiting a colony on Earth called Cetus, where towers of living flesh and tissue can be witnessed, or an infestation, an engineering infectious techno-organic parasite, capable of subverting, mutating, and assimilating all biological or synthetic matter into a new infested lifeform. The Orokin spent great time and resources building large research outposts throughout the Origin system, as well as creating countless genetic experiments on creatures found on Earth. It was during research that the Orokin discovered the Void. Perhaps you know of it, a parallel dimension. This discovery enabled further development of Orokin technology into outlandish heights, led by the infamous Intrati family. More on them at a later time. Opulence, aesthetics, elegance, beauty, and pleasure were at the forefront of the Orokin culture. Just like Emperor Callus of the Cabal from Destiny once craved. Like the Cabal Emperor, the Orokin were obsessed with luxury and supremacy, combined with unparalleled technology to create disturbing results. In their mad scramble for resources, the Orokin ruined much of the Origin system. In their curiosity, the Orokin continued to experiment with the Void. During routine experiments, the military ship containing numerous personnel and their families were steered into the Void in an attempt to travel and populate the Tau system. After that, the ship was lost, only to resurface years later. Exposure to the Void drove all adults aboard the ship mad, hunting down other members aboard. The children, though, had miraculously survived Void exposure, retaining their sanity, but their physiology was altered. Each child had been granted Void powers that were capable of terrifying impossibilities. In self-protection, the children of the Zariman defended themselves with these Void powers. Once the ship was rediscovered, the Orokin deemed the Zariman children too dangerous. Shortly after, they were hidden away and forgotten out of shame and fear, dubbing them Void Demons. These children would later be called Tenno, after the ship's designation of 10-0. Some years later, the Tenno were discovered by an Archimedean, a human woman of great intellect and geneticist known as Margulis. She adopted the Tenno as her own, empathizing with their turmoil of their suffering. With great determination, she searched for a way, a means for the Tenno to control their power and interact with the world normally. Margulis received opposition toward her research, and was advised by her secret lover Ballas to cease her study and forget the Tenno. She refused and continued her research. Eventually, Margulis invented gates, later known as reservoir, a machine created to form a conduit by which the Zariman children, these Tenno, could control their power. By placing them in a dreamlike state, with lucid consciousness, in a cold, dark environment, it enabled the children to control their power. Sadly, before that, a Void incident happened, leaving Margulis severely maimed by Void power, which left her blind. The Orokin had known for centuries that they were causing harm to the Origin system and still needed a solution for the plan: colonizing the Tau system. With the failure of the Zariman mission, a new means of traveling to Tau needed to be developed, and the terraforming process to produce habitable worlds. Archimedean Perentol thought that he could contribute to the plan with his new creations. He proposed the creation of a race of synthetic beings, later known as sentients, to spearhead an expansion of the Orokin influence beyond the Origin system into the Tau system. By reaching the Tau system using the power of sentience and beginning the terraforming process and the arrival of the Orokin Empire, ultimately avoiding extinction of the human race. Like Destiny's Siva, sentient creations are able to adapt to any kind of damage and reproduce via fission, while developing resistance to whatever had harmed them, making sentience the perfect tool capable of withstanding an immense pressure of traveling warp speeds and surviving the oppressive biomes and climates. However, there was a flaw. Archimedean Perentol said that there was an intentional flaw in their design: the Void, a working principle of the solar rail that would connect the Origin system to the Tau system, was poisonous to them, so the Orokin would not be in danger should something go wrong. After the machines arrived in Tau, they evolved, gaining sentience, hence their species name, Sentience. With the ability to think, they understood their Orokin creators would only bring ruin to Tau eventually, and so they rebelled. Their journey back to the Origin system would not kill them but render them sterile, unable to reproduce. The sentients under their leader Hunhao would start the rebellion. Thus, the beginning of the old war. War broke out amongst the Orokin and sentients. With their abilities to subjugate high levels of technology, the sentient quickly overwhelmed the Orokin. There were attempts to militarize their Grineer, which also failed as a countermeasure. The Orokin quickly discovered that their method of fighting proved ineffective against the sentients. The Corpus, a new faction, grew to the point of war profiteering, developing and selling technology for the war efforts. As such, the Orokin were aware of the Corpus' existence, calling them industrialists and the merchant cult, and would continue to monitor their movements due to their potential influence over the Orokin system. With the survival of the Orokin in peril, and faced with losing the war, they needed to create something new that would turn the tide of war and push back the sentients. To that end, necromechs were developed, autonomous and remote-controlled machines with heavy weaponry, void shielding, and immunity to sentient Orphic pulses. Eventually, these machines would be retired due to their lack of adaptability. In desperation, the Orokin turned to forbidden projects, and one in particular: the Infestation, one that destroyed their colonies in the past due to an uncontrolled outbreak. Some while an Orokin by the name of Ballas began researching new uses for the Infestation by experimenting on willing and unwilling subjects, cherry-picked from warriors amongst the Orokin ranks and echelon. This research led to the creation of Warframes, human subjects mutated through a specially engineered strain of the Infestation called Helminth. There was, however, a problem with these fabled creations. Though these new Warframe were powerful and initially did well against the sentients, they retained remnants of their former consciousness. Echoes of their past lives plagued their conscious, manifesting in fits of rage or despair. Thus, they turned on their Orokin masters. With the very essence of the frames in an unstable phase, the Orokin realized that these creations of flesh and steel were as lethal as the sentients. But through transference, the mind of another could quell the madness of a Warframe. Margulis' research led her to enlist the help of the Archimedean specializing in infestation manipulation, named Sylvana. Together they developed substitute bodies for the Tenno, and allowed them to move freely and interact with the world. Only the Zariman children were capable of this. Once the Orokin had discovered her research, Margulis became indignant, furious at the idea of the Zariman children potentially being made into tools of war. Knowing she was in trouble, Margulis would run to the help of her lover Ballas. However, he refused to, coercing her into working with the Orokin. Ultimately, Margulis would lose her life, and the Zariman children sequestered. The Orokin formed a new order of Tenno and their schools of thought, each based on honor and the old ways. The Zariman children were trained into fighting forces known as Tenno, serving their Orokin masters, but bound by honor. Though transference, they wielded Warframes to wage war against the sentients, proving to be highly effective. Abiding by their newly founded Tenno focus schools, they operated Warframes equipped with melee and ballistics to outmaneuver the sentients' interference of high-tech weaponry. With their help, the Orokin turned the tide of war over several lifetimes, leaving the sentients helpless against the combination of archaic combat techniques and void powers employed by the Tenno. That is until Ballas defected. Well, there you have it, Tenno. A perilous story of brokenness, betrayal, and hope. Even in the darkest night, the light of hope remains true, when good triumphs over evil. But that's all I have for you. Hopefully you have enjoyed watching and listening to today's video. If you did, be sure to comment below and give this video a like. Consider subscribing click the bell to find out when my next video goes live. Remember that no matter what you're facing at this moment in time, you can do all things. Stay safe and Godspeed.